Ash-colored skies hung low, smothering the land in a deep, oppressive gloom. The world had changed beyond recognition since the fall. Vast deserts of rubble and rust stretched further each day, encroaching hungrily upon the fewer and fewer pockets of civilization that remained. One-step sidewalks were now broken contortions of concrete, and the husks of toppled skyscrapers jutted into the dim horizon like the bones of ancient giants. From the remnants of humanity's scattered survivors emerged a new breed of leaders, and with them new conflicts. These leaders formed clans, each one harboring men and women with uncanny mental gifts. Where once armies fought with steel and gunpowder, battles now played out in the mind, turning thoughts and emotions into lethal weapons. The clans had shaped themselves around these psychic powers, each guided by its own beliefs about how to harness and control the mind. They felt unstoppable until a rumor began circulating about an ancient relic that could magnify these abilities 1,000-fold. In the charred remains of a library in North Haven, an old scholar had perished trying to protect an obscure text. Though the library's roof had collapsed and ash smoked from every page, the text's final mention of a relic survived. Word traveled quickly once the vigilant system of traveling refugees, trading intelligence and supplies, carried it from one outpost to another. Eventually, every clan knew, somewhere in the awakened wasteland, a relic of unknown origin promised mind-shattering power. In the center of a once grand city, the Eidos clan had carved out a stronghold from the rubble of a government building. Their leader, an imposing woman named Alecto, was known for her unbreakable iron will and measured cruelty. She was rumored to be able to delve into the psyches of others at will, extracting secrets, controlling limbs, and making nightmares into reality. Beneath her cloak of dread, though, she carried a spark of curiosity about the relic. Alecto's face bore the scars of past mental duels, and her eyes glowed with an unnatural flicker whenever her abilities were engaged. Late one evening, Alecto found herself contemplating the battered pages that told of the relic's existence. Her second-in-command, Vaughn, stood beside her, his tall, thin frame casting a long shadow in the lantern-lit chamber. "No origin, no instructions," he muttered. "It's practically shrouded in folklore." "But real enough," Alecto countered. "And if this relic truly amplifies mental powers, as they say, it would change the course of these wars overnight." Alecto's hunger for domination was matched only by her fear that the relic might fall into the hands of a rival clan. She had learned of at least two others who sought it: the Oris clan, famous for eerily coordinated group telepathy, and the Kalakri, whose method of mind-warping illusions had toppled entire enclaves without a shot fired. Summoning Eidos's most trusted followers, she laid out a plan. They would mount an expedition to the rumored location in what was left of the city's industrial quarter. But Eidos was not alone in seeking the relic. Along a scorched highway, beyond ghostly factories belching noxious fumes, the Kalakri had set up an encampment. Dark tents were arranged in neat rows, guarded by watchers who saw beyond the veil of human perception. Their leader, a man named Scale, was known for his illusions, so all-encompassing they could fool all five senses. People whispered he could make you see your best friend's face while stabbing you in the heart. No one was certain if that rumor was an exaggeration. From his own battered intelligence scrolls, Skull had deciphered a single cryptic detail. The relic seemed to be buried beneath the collapsed floors of an ancient tower that might once have been used for research into psychic phenomena. Some speculated the tower was part of an old government experiment, an attempt to harness brainwaves for warfare, which led to catastrophe. Scal believed it was more than rumor. He suspected the old-world scientists might have left behind a device capable of unlocking the full, raw potential of the human mind. His second, Miri, was a small, agile woman with a laugh that carried a sinister edge. She excelled at illusions that helped the group gather intelligence without direct conflict. "We'll have illusions in place before Eidos or Oris even realize we're nearby," Miri boasted. Skull gave her a tight smile. He knew Alecto was cunning, an adversary not easily fooled. But the Kalakri thrived on sowing chaos, and illusions, used properly, could turn the tide. Meanwhile, the Aras clan made their own preparations. They were led by an old man named Jarek, well known as the wise teacher of telepathic harmony. Their entire community functioned like a single organism. They believed in forging empathic connections, not as a tool for conquest, but for unity. Recently, though, necessity demanded more pragmatic tactics. The relic must not fall into the wrong hands. Rumors of Idos's and Kalakri's expansions forced Horus to abandon their passivity. If the relic were truly as powerful as the legend stated, it could be harnessed, or at least neutralized. On a clear morning, when the ash in the sky parted just enough to allow a sickly sunbeam, 3 different caravans set out from 3 different corners of the ruined cityscape. Each moved swiftly, hoping to recover the relic before others could stake a claim. Their routes inevitably converged upon the ancient tower's remains. At the foot of that tower, most of its floors had caved in, leaving behind only twisted metal and shattered glass. Broken staircases delved into a basement still partially intact below ground. The hallway there was rumored to hide laboratories filled with cryptic devices. Some said the walls themselves were haunted by the screams of test subjects, and that the place had become a vortex of psychic residue. Whether such rumors were literal or metaphorical, few cared. They wanted the relic. Alecto's group, having pushed through what had once been downtown, arrived first. The soldiers' respirators hissed in the dusty air. The basement corridor opened before them, lit only by the flicker of portable lanterns. Alecto reached out with her gifts, pressing gentle but firm mental scans against the shadows. She felt something. A presence that felt like a collective hum, intangible but there, a distant echo of past horrors. Even her hardened mind quivered under the strange pressure. Cautiously, she directed Vaughn and 2 others to secure the perimeter. Dust crunched under their boots as they passed signs labeling each room. Laboratory A, Laboratory B, psychotronic testing. Then, deeper in a large vault door. Its steel plating looked half-welded and half-blown open. The scorch marks and leftover wires around it pointed to frantic attempts, in the old world, either to seal something away or force it open. Here, Alecto beckoned her soldiers to hold back. She suspected dangerous energies might linger, and, from the deep recesses of her mind, she summoned a mental shield. Meryl, a newly recruited psychic, extended her own power to strengthen it. The group advanced toward the vault door, where a single plaque read, Project Cerebrum Catalyst. Meryl's eyes went wide. "We have to be careful, Commander. The energies here, they feel hungry, as if they want to meld with our own minds." She set a hand on the door's cold metal. Her expression contorted, and she began to chant something inaudible before Alecto pulled her away. "Steady," Alecto cautioned, heart pounding. "We proceed together. Vaughn, take the lead." They stepped inside the vault. Within the gloom, crates and shattered canisters lay scattered. Strange metal contraptions hung from the ceiling, and the tang of ozone lingered in the stale air. Broken observation windows peered out from a control room, the glass powdered on the floor. The group's lanterns revealed a central dais, upon which sat a small metallic structure shaped like a prism. An array of thick cables once connected it to the overhead machines. The surface was etched with swirling patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. Alecto could tell at once that this was it. Some intangible wave of psychic pressure rolled off it. She felt it pushing at her mind with a gentle but persistent force. Her adrenaline spiked. Suddenly, the image of the dais flickered. A corridor appeared behind it. No, that was impossible. A moment later, it vanished. From the darkness behind them, a voice rang out. "Step away," said Skill, his tone echoing unnaturally. The Kalakri had arrived. Illusions weaved around them in stuttering pulses of color and darkness, making it difficult to tell how many flanked him. Alecto's soldiers raised their weapons, but they realized they risked firing upon illusions. Only Vaughn, focusing his mind, tried to divine where the real threat stood. Alecto stood upright, clutching the lantern in one hand and reaching mentally for the relic. She forced a telepathic shout, a wave of escalating anguish, into the space around her, hoping to stagger her adversaries. She felt the flash of mental contact. One of Scale's illusions shattered into a swirl of sparks, revealing a single, short-figured Kalakri operative crouching behind a crate. But more illusions still lingered. "I should warn you," Skal continued, emerging from a flicker in the dank corner. The Kalakri have spent generations perfecting illusions. You can't hold us all off alone, Electo. The swirling illusions suddenly parted, revealing two more Kalakri operatives. One was Miri, who wore a token of carved bone around her neck that supposedly enhanced her illusions. She aimed a narrow-lobed psychic field in Electo's direction, sending waves of disorienting shapes twisting around her. Electo's eyes blurred. Vaughn collapsed to his knees. The moment stretched, and Electo felt the relic's energy intensify. A single pulse, like a shock wave, rippled through the space. It struck both Eidos and Kalakri alike, stirring the dust and toppling small crates. In that single burst, illusions flickered and died. Skal winced, eyes wide, as though he had just been struck across the face. Miri pressed her palms to her head. Vaughn's breath returned to him in ragged gasps, and suddenly another presence filled the vault. From the corridor beyond came 9 figures dressed in gray robes, drifting in formation. The Orus clan arrived in silence, every step synchronized as if they shared one heartbeat. Their leader, Jarek, stood at the front, wearing a look of pained calm. He raised his wrinkled hands, communicating telepathically. "Cease this madness. The relic is not a prize to be squabbled over." A deep hush fell as the tension mounted. The Orus clan raised a sheltering psychic field around themselves, forming a shimmering dome of mental harmony. The air in the vault quivered with the subtle friction of multiple mental energies clashing. Electo and Skal, each reeling from the relic's pulse, turned to face the new threat. "I have no intention of surrendering it," Electo said, raising her voice. "It belongs to Eidos." Skal, "It belongs to those who can claim it, or is it you alone who decides such things?" Jarek pressed his lips together. "No one person or group should have this power. We came to ensure it is contained. The tensions fueled by your clan's rivalries pale in comparison to what might happen if this relic is unleashed, magnifying your abilities, poisoning you further. We can work together to neutralize it." But Electo swiftly cut him off. "Do you truly believe we'll let you sabotage it out of fear? That's the difference between Eidos and Orus. You're too timid to grasp the future that's right in front of you." Vaughn clenched his fists. "Enough talk. We can finish this." Jarek frowned at Vaughn's eagerness, then spread his hands, weaving empathic dissonance to break Eidos's aggression. A wave of sadness and regret washed over Electo, stirring painful memories of battles lost, people she'd sacrificed. She stumbled for a moment, mind swirling with guilt she had buried. Skal, unaffected by the empathic wave aimed at Eidos, used the opening. He lunged forward, illusions swirling from his fingertips, coiling around the relic. He seized it, ignoring the jolt of psychic feedback. An instant later, Miri lashed out with illusions directed at the Orus clan. She made it appear as if the metal roof was collapsing, sending a storm of debris upon them. For a heartbeat, the hours line fractured, losing the synchronization they prided themselves on, and they ducked as if the illusions were real. Skal cradled the relic with trembling hands. The swirling patterns on its surface glowed with faint, iridescent light. The connection to his psyche was immediate, electric. His illusions took on a sharper, more vivid edge, and new powers within him threatened to awaken. He wanted to test them. Without pause, he projected a horrifying vision into Vaughn's mind, one of Vaughn's greatest fears given life. Vaughn dropped his weapon with a cry. He clutched at his head as the hallucination devoured his senses. The Eidos soldiers, too, found themselves lost in illusions, swirling shapes, creeping shadows, the feeling of their minds unraveling. Electo fought to remain grounded. She forced her mind to anchor in the present. Through sheer will, she lashed out in retaliation and sent a concentrated telepathic spear at Skal's consciousness. She felt his mind waver under the blow, but the relic expanded his resilience, and he did not succumb. The energy of that artifact seemed to buffer him. Only a single grunt of pain escaped his lips before he twisted away, illusions splintering around him into multi-hued shards that cut across the vault like dancing ghosts. The Orus clan saw what was happening. Jarek, trying to override the illusions, reached out with a telepathic wave of unity. He aimed to suppress Scale's aggression with an emotion of calm acceptance. But, amplified by the relic, Scale countered with a sudden torrent of fear. The wave was primal, an entropic nightmare that hammered into Jarek's psychic field. Horus members screamed in unison, and their cohesive shield cracked as if hammered by a giant invisible fist. Desperate to shield his companions, Jarek poured his strength into a telepathic barrier, weaving empathy with an unyielding will to protect. Yet the relic's presence was too strong. Jarek's face contorted with strain. Miri, emboldened by Scal's new potency, unleashed illusions that crawled and slithered along the vault walls. The illusions took shape as monstrous figures, twisting the space so it appeared infinitely deep. She cast illusions of Eidos and Horus warbeasts, each prowling and roaring, claws scraping steel. Those illusions closed in on the real people, distorting the line between real and unreal so none could be certain what threat was physically present. One Horus soldier, enthralled by the illusions, collapsed in a trembling fit. Another cowered behind Jarek, tears streaking her face. Suddenly, an unexpected development. The relic pulsed again, more violently, as if reacting to the swirl of powers in the vault. A wave of raw psychic force erupted from its core, and even Skal lost his grip on it, letting out a guttural sound. In that moment, illusions flickered out, mental attacks faltered, and everyone staggered. The lines between friend and foe blurred, minds reeled from the sudden mental shock. The relic now glowed steadily on the floor, arcs of pale light dancing across its swirling patterns. The tension escalated. Alecto, mind swirling with visions of destruction, recognized a chance. Perhaps the relic could be wrested away from both Skal and Jarek, turning Eidos from a contender into the absolute authority in this conflict. Summoning her strength, she lunged forward, ignoring Vaughn's cries for caution, and seized the relic with both hands. She felt its rush. It was unlike any psychic presence she had ever encountered. For a moment, she glimpsed 1,000 minds on some higher plane. Glimpsing her own psyche, she felt as if she stood at the nexus of every mind on the planet. She could reach out and command them, but she sensed malevolent shadows swirling in that plane as well, as if dreadful entities had awakened. A raw jolt of euphoria followed, then abrupt terror. Her body trembled with the near-limitless potential. The relic craved to be used, to feed on conflict. Her eyes glowed with fiery intensity. Skal fought to keep his bearings. He forced illusions at Alecto, but she merely roared, flinging a telepathic wave that ripped through the illusions like brittle glass. He sprawled backward, stunned by her newly amplified might. Jarek and the Horus tried to intervene. "Alecto, release it," Jarek pleaded, weaving compassion into his voice. She glared, her own mind half lost to the relic's seduction. She unleashed a psychic shriek. A wave of scalding mental pressure slammed into Jarek so forcefully that he coughed blood. The Horus soldiers wailed in unison, their empathy linking them, sharing the pain. Miri tried to stealthily reach Alecto from behind, but the moment she came within arm's reach, Alecto's mind was upon her, twisting her senses into a personal nightmare. Miri fell to her knees, screaming at horrors no one else could see. Alecto's voice thundered across the vault. "Kneel, all of you, or be destroyed." She felt unstoppable, alive, in a way she never had been before. She raised a hand, intending to crush the combined enemies with a single psychic blow. Yet as she stood there, the relic's swirling patterns consumed her vision, and a portion of her mind realized that the artifact was feeding on her deeper impulses, on her raw ambition, her suppressed pains. For a split second, a fleeting image came unbidden to Alecto, a scorched earth with her at the center, commanding an army of thralls. But the sky was rent with storms of psychic fury, the planet's life force drained. She saw not just the downfall of her enemies, but the extinction of everything. Her heart hammered in her chest, and a flicker of doubt passed through her. Was she unleashing an apocalypse that far exceeded the fall? But the relic whispered promises. She could rebuild a world in her image. With that promise, she steeled herself and prepared to strike. She pressed the relic's power outward. Then, An unexpected spear of mental clarity shot into Alecto's thoughts. He had drawn upon an energy of desperation that overcame his illusions, overcame his own fear. Through the bond they had formed in countless battles, he found a path into her psyche. He saw the battered child within her, the woman who had grown up in post-fall devastation. The part of her that yearned to fix the world rather than burn it. Vaughn sent her one clear memory. Eidos once had a dream of forging a new civilization, not just crushing all opposition. Alecto wavered. For the first time, she confronted the magnitude of the horrors she was about to unleash. Her stance faltered, and her psychic strike dissipated in a burst of static. The relic's glow surged, trying to grip her soul again, but she fought back, wrestling with her own fury, her pride, her thirst for dominance. The mental war raged inside her, culminating in a guttural cry as she pulled away, physically hurling the relic from her hands. It skidded across the vault, stopping near Jarek, who lay on the floor, winded and bleeding. He eyed it warily. Slowly he reached for it, trembling from exhaustion. And something unexpected happened. Jarek's empathic presence, shaped by years of teaching and nurturing unity within Horus, caused the relic's glow to shift from a fiery swirl into something calmer, though still potent. He recoiled, sensing that the artifact tried to latch onto him as well, but his mind, disciplined by decades of communal empathy, had a different way of handling raw psychic force. Instead of letting it feed on aggression, he turned its power inward to compassion. "Help me," Jarek whispered to his clan members, who gathered around him, each placing a hand on the relic or on Jarek's shoulders in a communal link. Their empathic synergy formed a living chain, passing emotional energy from one to another, containing the artifact's volatile pulses. The relic's swirling pattern shimmered uncertainly, as though confused by this environment of unity, yet it did not subside entirely. Across the vault, Alecto leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Scale, seeing an opening, tried to muster an illusion to snatch the artifact from the Horus, but nothing formed. His illusions were faint, tattered. The raw feedback from the relic's pulses had drained him. There were no illusions left to conjure. Miri lay still, trembling with aftershocks of the nightmares. Jarek closed his eyes, focusing on the relic's essence. He reached out telepathically, bridging to Alecto, to Skal, to everyone in the vault. A swarm of conflicting emotions rushed in. Fear, anger, desperation, greed. Yet among them flickered hope, tenacity, and the dim but genuine desire to survive as a species. The relic resonated strongly with chaotic impulses, but Jarek's linking presence began to shape and direct those impulses, mitigating the destructive surge. His expression was pained, and it was obvious that the effort was slowly killing him. "Alecto," Jarek said telepathically, "help me if you don't want this to destroy us all." She hesitated. She recalled that moment seconds earlier when she felt the entire planet trembling under the weight of this artifact's power. Slowly she joined the link. Their minds met, and she funneled her considerable psychokinetic strength into stabilizing the relic's wild energies. The relic flared bright, buzzing with tension as it met raw aggression from Alecto's side and empathic calm from Jarek's side. The energies seemed to clash violently at first, then something shifted. To Skal, nothing looked more dangerous than letting Eidos and Horus form a pact. However momentary, he instinctively rose, intending to grab the relic and reassert his own illusions. But Vaughn wedged himself between Skal and the dais, leveling a look that said, "Enough." Both men, exhausted, could barely stay upright. Skal's gaze flicked to the trembling relic, and the swirl of energies around Alecto, Jarek, and the Horus clan. Slowly, he lowered his head, acknowledging there was nothing to do but watch. Within that telepathic link, Alecto and Jarek worked against the relic's impulses for chaos, absorbing, redirecting. It felt as if they grasped the edges of a hurricane and tried to calm the storm from within. The relic's energies sparked, blending hatred and empathy into a single psychic wave that rattled the vault's walls. The swirling patterns danced in frantic arcs until, gradually, the light dimmed. With one final pulse, a shockwave blew the lanterns out, plunging everything into darkness. Then, silence. Absolute, echoing silence. Someone lit a small lantern. The dim glow illuminated Jarek, kneeling with the relic in his hands. The swirling patterns had gone dark, the device little more than cold metal. Alecto panted, knees buckling, as Vaughn caught her. Scal stood at a distance, the illusions that once protected him nowhere to be seen. Miri sank to the floor, sobbing with relief. The Aureus soldiers, guided by their empathic bond, helped Jarek place the relic onto the dais carefully, stepping away. For a few moments no one spoke. They realized they still breathed. The relic lay inert, but the memory of its unstoppable presence lingered in the air like the last notes of a thunderous cacophony. Alecto wondered if it could be destroyed. She glanced at Jarek, who was thinking the same thing. Finally, Jarek broke the silence, voice weak. "None of us can be allowed to use it. We have to bury it, crush it, fling it into the depths. Anything." His eyes flicked to Skull and Alecto. "This power, it will only lead to our enslaving each other, or worse. None of us need that." Alecto, swallowing her pride, forced a nod. In that short possession, she had tasted unimaginable power, and it had nearly devoured her soul. Vaughn squeezed her shoulder in silent solidarity. Across the vault, Scale let out a low grunt, conflicted. Miri, tears still clinging to her cheeks, nodded as well. Whatever illusions and ambitions the Kalakri had held close, the terrifying glimpse had shaken them to the core. They had realized that even illusions paled in comparison to raw mental power unchained. An awkward truce settled among Idas, Kalakri, and Oris. Bruised bodies and battered minds stared at each other across the dusty vault. Palpable tension still hung in the air, but each clan understood, with a sense of reluctant clarity, they had no choice but to cooperate. The only alternative was to risk repeating that cataclysmic collision and unleashing something far worse upon the land. Under Jarek's direction, they spent hours searching the vault's remains for ways to contain or destroy the relic. They discovered old journals, detailing attempts by scientists who had tried to harness psychic energy to shape reality. The result, it seemed, was the meltdown that had contributed to the world's misery. The fall itself might have been triggered in part by experiments with this artifact. In the end, the battered clans resolved to seal the relic deep inside the earth. Their plan was to collapse the subterranean labs, burying it under tons of rubble so that it would never see the light of day again. All around them, the ruins of the ancient tower groaned. The seismic damage from the fall had left the structure precarious. With careful telekinetic work from Eidos, illusions from Kalakri to hide the operation from curious wanderers, and coordinated protective fields from Oris, they set the plan in motion. Hours later, the floors above gave way with a tremendous crash, burying the dais and the relic deep beneath twisted steel and concrete in a grill-like seal. A final echoing thunder reverberated through the rubble. When the dust cleared, the survivors stood battered and worn in the open, ashen daylight streaming weakly through the collapsed mound. Jarek looked at Alecto and scowled. Their eyes locked, none entirely trusting the others. But for a single moment, they recognized that they had all nearly destroyed themselves, and maybe the entire world, for an artifact of unimaginable danger. The moment passed. Reality sank in that their fragile peace would not last forever. But for now, each clan leader understood there was a limit they dared not cross. The cost of ignoring that limit could be final. They parted ways. Oris left quietly, returning to the salvageable remains of their settlement. The Kalakri, illusions dimmed, slipped into the shadows to nurse their wounds and rethink strategies. Eidos's group headed back through the battered city, Alecto limping more from the weight on her conscience than any physical wound. They had not forgotten their ambitions, but something profound had shifted. No one knew if that relic would lie dormant forever beneath the rubble. Perhaps future generations would stumble upon it. Perhaps it would awaken again one day, fueled by the endless cycle of fear and aggression. But in that moment, standing under the smothered sky in a world still healing, the clans shared a rare, tenuous accord of silence and mutual respect. For the briefest time, they felt the possibility of a future beyond annihilation, even as they returned to a harsh land defined by dust, ruin, and secrets best left buried.